Hey, welcome to Creative Block. We're your host, Nick.
And Fernando. We interview people in creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had any specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
Today with us, we have V. Hey!
I thought you guys were gonna say we have us.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were doing.
Oh, damn it. Should we start over?
Nah,
Okay.
that's great.
Okay.
You guys are amazing hosts of yourselves.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for coming on this show.
Yeah.
This is gonna be so much
Of
fun.
course. Yeah.
I'm just gonna introduce you guys real fast, and then we can go a little bit into your lives. Nick, I've met you on Bye Bye Bunny, the show, the movie that we're both storyboarding on right now at WB.
Yep.
Movie that is being shopped around, officially announced as shopped around.
May or may not be created, but you know.
That's animation. You know, that's And Fernando, we actually have met through mutual acquaintances, but we haven't actually worked together. I just know that you've worked with Nick on Cuphead, and you have currently a short that you're making at Cartoon Network.
Yep. I'm working on a short called Buttons Game Zone for the Cartoons Shorts program over at Cartoon Network Studios. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Protagonist here on the Jamboard. If you're tuning in from iTunes or Spotify, make sure to check the YouTube video. But let's kind of go to you guys' origin story.
Oh yes. Origin story.
Did you always know that you wanted to go into animation?
Fernando, you wanna answer first?
Sure. Well, ever since I was a little kid, I was always like exposed to specifically Disney stuff. Pinnochio was like one of my favorite movies as a kid. My parents talk about it all the time, and I remember it. You know, it's some of my earliest memories was watching Pinocchio and Bug's Life specifically, Pixar film. Why are you guys laughing? It's great.
I love that these are like I haven't heard those as influences yet. Pinocchio and Bug's Life. I love it.
They're kind of weird. But yeah, no, I watched a lot of that stuff. There's like these VHSs called like the Disney Sing Along something that I used to watch all the time. That's kind of like how I was exposed to a lot of like, you know, animation stuff. So like my parents, you know, they always were very supportive of that. They always like, you know, tried to expose me to that stuff. I didn't really know that I wanted to draw until I was really like 10 or something. I think I always had like, I always wanted to be, oh my god, my list of like always wanted to be when I grew up was like, I wanted to be an artist of some kind, or a comedian, or I wanted to work at McDonald's because I like the food, and I wanted the toys, and I also wanted to be like a scoutmaster or something, even though that doesn't really pay.
These are some interesting aspirations, but I respect it.
Yeah, well, I think...
When did you give up on your dream of working at McDonald's?
I think once they told me that it didn't pay very much, I think I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe, you know, and, I think I also understood that meant not drawing, you know, for the rest of my life, which is really what I wanted to do. I think when I was 10... I was like, oh, you know, I'd like to make comics, or I'd like to, you know, have a TV show or something, like a cartoon. I was always into cartoons. I never really outgrew that. Everybody was watching Zoe 101, and I was still watching, like, you know, like SpongeBob and Jimmy Neutron and stuff like that. So,
you don't like Zoe 101?
No, I haven't even seen a single episode, so... But I remember that was like the one show everybody was like, dude, you need to watch it. And I was like, no,
what?
Thank you. I know.
Dude, there's
I love that.
great romance.
Like, dude.
I know.
Dude.
At that age, my dad was very much like, oh, this kid, he's going to be an architect. I just know it, But I really hated math as a kid. So, I think I hated school in general. So I used it, drawing was kind of an escape of that. Even though I wasn't like a bad student, I was just, I just wanted to draw all the time. And that kind of like, kind of clicked with me, at the end of elementary. I was like, oh yeah, this is probably what I should be doing for the rest of my life. Should I just keep going, or should I let Nick have his piece?
Well, I think, you know what? Let's just kind of like take it to like the moment. So you realize in elementary school, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to like actively pursue animation.
Yeah.
And then you kind of went onto that path. Yeah. So like, what about you, Nick? Were you kind of like, did you always know it? Was it kind of like more of a late realization, or?
It's kind of similar to Fernando. Pinocchio was also like my favorite movie as a little kid. So, that was super inspiring, along with like other like Disney shorts, like the old silly symphonies and stuff. I really liked as a little kid. Before I drew, I mean, that's what made me want to draw, was watching the cartoons. And then I don't know, the first time I remember, I probably drew before this, but the first memory I really have of drawing, I remember trying to draw the Big Bad Wolf from the old Disney short. And yeah, I just really liked cartoons. I liked fictional worlds and, crazy characters and places. And so, yeah, when I was a little kid, I was drawing a lot, and I got a lot of like support from my family and, my teachers and stuff, for the most part, like saw that I was, had an interest in drawing, and I was lucky to have people that like, told me I should keep going. And yeah, so then I guess I always kind of knew that like animation was a career path. And my parents would tell me like about, how cartoons were made and stuff. So yeah, and then like SpongeBob came out, and that is where I think I really like developed a lot of like the sensibilities that I have today. And I was just so obsessed with SpongeBob. I know Fernando was too.
Yeah, I should also say that was like when I started to take art seriously. It was when I was trying to emulate SpongeBob. I was seeing all these kids drawing SpongeBob. Have you ever seen that? Like when a kid draws SpongeBob. Okay, I don't want to draw it, but okay, well, I'll just draw it. They'll do this, and like they'll have like, okay, here's SpongeBob's face, and then they'll do this, like, oh yeah, he has a million holes.
He has holes,
right? So,
right? He has holes. Oh, you're missing like a hole right here. There's a hole there. There's some on his nose. So
yeah, no. And I was like, no, that's not what he looks like. What are you doing? He's got like 5 holes on his front tops, maybe.
My version of that was like his belt. I would draw, he's got like the 4, you can see those 4 like strips of belt, but as a kid, I would do like this. I would give him so many belt loops. I'm like, that's right. I think that's right.
Oh my god, I would have hated you as a kid. We wouldn't have been friends as a kid.
Yeah, you would not. I would have
been
approved.
Like this loser, not getting him right.
And he got legs.
No.
But yeah, so that stuff really inspired me, and then I love drawing, so I just did it all the time and got better, and yeah.
Yeah, did you for you guys, did you attend art school, or
Oh yeah.
And where was it?
Okay. So, I guess continuing with where I was going, when I went to high school, I was pretty much the only person who wanted to like pursue the arts. You know, everybody else wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor or something, and I was the only one who was really like, I want to do art for a living, you know. In my whole class, you know. Yeah, and during an art, like a college fair thing, I saw a booth for a school called Ringling College of Art and Design. I think Megan and Carl painted a pretty good picture of what the school was, but just to summarize, it's a good school for a very specific kind of people. If you want to like animate, if you want to work in feature animate like CG stuff, then Ringling is kind of perfect for you. I was part of the computer animation program. And
so you've done 3D. So
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It's really funny because you, Megan, and Carl, like you have like a very cartoony style of drawing, which is like very different from what you would imagine from people who study CG animation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people over there, they always wanted to, you know, and you wouldn't expect this, but I think people who went into Ringling, they always wanted to, it seems like they always wanted to break the mold when they came in. Like, you know, like I think freshman year, usually people are like pretty standard, like, oh yeah, I want to do what like DreamWorks does or what Disney Feature does, you know, that kind of thing. But then like once they hit junior year, which is when you do your thesis, like pre-production, which is like storyboards and designs and stuff, people are always like, okay, I'm gonna like try to break the mold. I know how to animate now, so we should, I want to try to break the mold with this one and try to make something weird and unusual. And then like that's when like the teachers kind of like stomp on that and go, no, you know, this doesn't make any sense. Like they get to dictate what your story is, which is kind of frustrating. You have to like kind of like really prove yourself to be able to break the mold, which is kind of difficult.
Yeah.
I felt like, yeah, I think the school was kind of like pretty important to me for my growth as an artist. But at the same time, I felt like I was being pushed the wrong way. I was being pushed to become a generalist, like a CG generalist, instead of a storyboard artist. My thesis, even though it's like pretty much like, you know, it's like I tried to make something really cartoony and really different, and I tried to be kind of like tried to make like something that should have been in 2D but is in 3D actually instead. So I got to do it. I think I was successful, you know.
It's great. It's great.
Oh, thank you. I mean, like, I think I was successful, like, in the way that, like, for someone who hated working in CG, I think I turned out pretty good for what I wanted it to be. So I'm still kind of proud of it. And it still gets shown on some short film festivals over there.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the name of your short film?
Oh, it's called Log Boy.
Log Boy?
Yeah, it actually was supposed to be the main character. So Log Boy is about like this little wooden character. He's like a little log. Or it's like this woodsman who like is chopping wood. He loves to chop wood with his like beloved axe, and then like a log comes to life and teases him and drives him nuts or whatever.
It's got 1 million views.
Yeah, on YouTube. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Nuts.
No, but originally that character was supposed to be Pinocchio, but they were like, I think the teachers were too hung up on like, well, he has to tell a lie. His nose has to grow. That's all Pinocchio is about. And it's like, well, no, I want it to be kind of like, you know, I don't know. I want it to be like Pinocchio, and he's like constantly in danger, but he doesn't realize it. And they were like, we like the idea, but we don't like that it's Pinocchio. And it's like, okay, well, it's just Log Boy, then it's like a different character. But yeah, no, I think I had a better experience at Ringling than most people do. I had made a lot of friends, a lot of connections. I wouldn't recommend it for people who didn't want to do CG. I think it's kind of like, it's kind of when I left the school, even though I had a lot of friends who were gonna be storyboard artists, and they were like, Fernando, you should apply to this and do this and apply to that. Like, I think you could do a really good job. And like, even though I had a lot of like support around me, I think ultimately my takeaway after leaving the school was like, I shouldn't be a storyboard artist. It seems too hard, and there's not a lot of jobs in it. So
do you was it, how did you come to this conclusion? Was it that the teachers was that the people around you who told you that it was too hard, or was it just because you thought because it's an interesting point of view, because I feel like storyboards are hard, and there's a lot of people nowadays who want to do boards, and I do feel like I think it's a great career to pursue. I love doing storyboards, and at the same time you're a board artist now.
Yeah. Well, that just kind of goes to show how much of a soul-sucking situation it was. Like, because like I was making this short film where it was all CG and only a part of it was storyboarding, so it was kind of hard to, get to that. I think what really, like, the straw that broke the camel's back was seeing everybody get internships, and I was getting interviews with like people like Illumination and other places, and they were like, oh, this is good, but where's your portfolio? And I was like, oh, I don't have a portfolio. And I tried to apply to places, like I tried to apply to like Nickelodeon, and I tried to apply to like I'm trying to think. I applied to Nickelodeon twice, and nothing came of it. So I was like, okay, I think I should probably put this on pause, and just kind of, I was kind of like, I thought I should just become a generalist and then do like storyboarding as a hobby, which is like a terrible idea because storyboarding is so difficult. I mean, maybe there's people out there who would want to do it that way, and that's totally cool. But I was like, I just thought I need to make money. Ringling kind of puts that in your mind. Like, if you want to be successful, you have to make money no matter what. If you have a job in entertainment, that's great, but as long as you make money, that's really what it was. So I kind of was poisoned with that mindset, and so I was lucky enough that my friend Alexis was moving to LA, and she was like, hey, I need a roommate. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm not getting that many job offers in Puerto Rico. So yeah, I'll go with you. So I moved to LA without a job, which is kind of dangerous. But I moved, and I got a job as a generalist, at this company that I won't name because I didn't like it very much. And while I was there, I went to a different school. So like, I had heard about like Concept Design Academy, which is it had been recommended to me by people that went to my school. Like, hey, I went to this school and it really taught me a lot about like storyboarding and stuff. And I was like, I'd like to go there someday. And then one day I got an email like, hey, we're opening up like, applications for like, storyboarding for TV animation was the class that was open. And I was like, oh, that sounds like perfect for me. I'll do that as a hobby. Well, I'm at work. I'll, once I'm done at work, I'll go. It was a night class. So I would go to Pasadena after my job.
Oh,
And
interesting. So you were like working while you were attending another school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was with Ben Junwano.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was great. He was great. He pretty much taught me like a million things that I didn't learn at Ringling, because the way that Ringling teaches storyboarding is like, it's a means to an end. You shouldn't try to make the boards fun or anything, because at the end of the day, you won't see them. You won't see the boards or whatever.
I see.
And it's very limiting, because they're like, okay, well, this is going to be CG, so make sure your boards aren't too crazy, wacky. I was like, oh, okay. But at CDA, I was free to do whatever I wanted, and at the same time, I was learning like these industry secrets or whatever. And then, yeah, at the end of it, I was like happier going to class than I was going to work. So I was like, I took that as a sign, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing generalist stuff. I'll just, I'll just focus on being a storyboard artist. And that was, that was it. That was like that was like what like broke me out of that slump that kind of like I attribute to Ringling, So I think my art school situation was like, going to Ringling taught me a lot of things, and but I had to teach myself a lot too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great story. I like that you went to two schools. I feel like that's a story that we haven't had a lot on the podcast. And I think it's interesting to hear that storyboarding, even though you knew you wanted to go into animation, it took you a while to realize that storyboarding was the particular craft that you were actually interested in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's hear it from Nick.
So let's see. In high school, like finishing up high school, I did not like put in any effort or anything. Like, I was a bad student, and I just wanted to be done. I really just wanted to draw. I'm so bad at everything else, just generally, that drawing was like was my favorite thing. And so when I finished high school, I was like, well, I'm just going to go to community college, and then maybe I'll go to this school, VCU, because I'm from Virginia. This is all happening in Virginia. And VCU is like the really most noteworthy art school in Virginia, one of them. So everyone told me to go there, and then but for what I wanted to do, which was animation, they didn't have a great animation program, and it just wasn't well suited for me. So when I was in community college, I found out that this school called Longwood University, which is where my sister went, they had a graphic design and this new animation program, and they were going to have this guy, Tuck Tucker, who used to work in animation, was going to be teaching there. So I was like, oh man, because he worked on The Simpsons and Spongebob and a billion other things. I was like, whoa, this would be the perfect person to get learn from. And so I barely got through community college. I was I barely slid through, but I did. And then I went to Longwood, and I learned from Tuck for 3 years, and then I learned so much about, and I knew I wanted to do storyboards. So getting to finally after years of taking shitty college classes that were boring, and I don't condone failing your classes and stuff, but it was just nice to finally take some classes where I was really learning some the skills that I wanted to build up. So I learned a lot about storyboarding. I made a short film. It does not have 1 million views.
Well, that just goes to show.
Wow. Well, anyways, yeah. So I made a short film, and then Tuck hooked me up with some people from SpongeBob, and I got some freelance like plussing work, and I was really happy. I was doing that like right before I graduated college. I did some SpongeBob work, and um, then the Cuphead show got announced,
Oh,
and
just
Uh-oh.
a second. I wanted
yeah,
to ask, how did you get your SpongeBob work? Was it did somebody reach out? Was that did you?
basically Tuck, yeah, knew all those people because he worked with them, and
Oh, great. Yeah,
yeah,
connection network.
exactly,
That's
yeah.
great.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he called them and told them that he had a student that, you know, like was ready to work, and I did it like a really a small test. It wasn't even a test. It was like a page full of SpongeBob drawings, basically. They just wanted
Oh,
to make sure
nice.
that
Yeah,
I knew how to
you could
draw the
draw.
characters. Yeah, so I
Hmm.
did that, and then they gave me some plussing work. It was pretty minimal, but it felt good to be, working, like actually doing
Yeah.
professional work and getting paid for it and everything. It was great. It was like the first time throughout college that I had like money. So that was nice.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
And
remember that first time, the first paycheck, you're like,
yes, I was like,
holy shit.
it was like, holy shit. 4 digits. So yeah, that was pretty incredible. And yeah, so then Adam Poloian, who worked on SpongeBob, was leaving right when I started working on SpongeBob, and he told me he was going to Netflix to work on some project, and he might want me to work on it with him. And
Hmm.
then the Cuphead show got announced online. I was like, oh, this has to be what Adam was talking about. And then I emailed him and I was like, hey, and yeah, so he posted it online and I was like, okay, so yeah, he is working on Cuphead. So I emailed him about it and uh, he gave me a test, uh, like a storyboard test, and I had a week to do it. And the test was like, you had to, Fernando, you didn't do the test, right? You tested for a different
Oh, I
show,
have
and
a
then
different story about
yeah,
that. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, so anyways, I did the test. The test was like, this should take you like 8 hours, which was complete bullshit. It was like it was two like minute long segments basically, and
What?
yes, it was so much, but I wanted the job so bad, and so I worked on it for like a week straight with like no breaks, and
Oh,
uh,
wow.
yeah, so and then yeah, they called me and offered me a revisionist position and they were like, "Yeah, we want you to but we want you to like be in house." Like and they paid me to move out to California and I
Nick,
was
you're not supposed to
so
say that.
I moved voluntarily. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's actually really great that you mentioned that because I think a lot of when we get a job offer, a lot of students or new workers forget that they can ask the company for small things like covering the cost of moving. I know Etienne, who was a guest on a show before, I think he managed to get that in his deal that like the company who hired him to come over helped him with the moving costs. So definitely something to keep in mind if
Yes.
you're moving for a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should definitely help you out with that. But yeah, I was so excited, and it was like finally what I had worked so hard for was like finally, happening, and it was just a really exciting time. And I moved out here, and then I started working on Cuphead, and I met Fernando and many other like great friends. Um, and yeah, that's how it began.
Uh, I have a. Can I tell my story about how I started working on Cuphead?
You may.
Okay. So after taking Ben's wonderful class and meeting so many people, I took that. I did the final assignment and I looked at it and I was like, wow, I've never done anything quite as good as this. Like, I think this is a sign. Like the way that like I was doing in class, I thought, I'm able to churn out these like pretty difficult assignments. Difficult, I think, for like someone who, it's just a lot of drawing. So I was like, I saw that as a sign, like I love storyboarding and I don't mind the workload, so I think this is like right for me. And I took it as a sign that I should just quit my job and focus on being a storyboard artist. I did. I quit my job, as a generalist, and I, for a couple months, I kind of focused on doing storyboards. I did a design test for Solar Opposites. That was like kind of my first animation, test, and I didn't get picked. I didn't, work on it, so I was like, oh, okay. But then afterwards, on Instagram, I got a message from a recruiter saying, hey, we have this new show, and I think you'd be a great fit for it. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, that sounds good. And I got a test for a little show called Inside Job.
Oh, interesting. So you were testing for adult shows mostly.
Yeah, I was, I guess. I don't know why, like, because like most of my Instagram was like kind of like stuff like this, but yeah, no, I guess I caught the eye of a Netflix recruiter. This was like back when the company was approving stuff and getting stuff off the ground and stuff, and I was like pretty surprised. I was like, yeah, no, definitely. I poured my heart and soul into it. It wasn't too bad because it was a paid test, which was
nice.
Fantastic. I poured my heart and soul into it, and I waited a couple of days, and I got a call from that same recruiter saying, hey, I have good news and bad news. And I was like, oh, okay. Bad news is, like, Inside Job rejected your test. They didn't like it. I was like, oh, no. And, it was pretty much just like, yeah, I guess I don't want to, say what it was, but my point is, like, they were like, yeah, they didn't like it. They didn't think you were hitting the style right. I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. And then she was like, well, but the good news is that the Cuphead Show people saw it. And when I heard Cuphead, the hairs on my arms sprouted up. I was like, oh, whoa. And I was like, so like dumbfounded. They were like, the Cuphead people saw the test and they want to bring you in for an interview. And I was like, oh my fucking God. Well, yeah, I'll take it. I took the interview. I met with the show's creators. They liked me, I guess. And I started working as a storyboard artist. And that's when I got to meet Megan and Carl, who were like, kind of like really, like my heroes when I was at Ringling. So I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting my heroes, So it was like, I was like really like starstruck, even though they were like, oh, like it's whatever. They were really nice when I met them. And I started working with them on Cuphead. It was a huge learning experience. I learned so much. And then one day, while Adam was giving me some notes on the episode, I believe was Sweater Off Dead, this fucking idiot started walking over here, lumbering in, drool spilling out of his mouth, and being like, oh, I'm Nick. Oh. And I rolled my eyes. Adam was like, ugh, this guy, give me a second.
This is not true.
The rest was history. And, Nick moved across from me. It was really weird.
Yeah, it's actually true. We lived like literally across the street from each other. It was by accident, but
yeah. I've been living there for like, 2 years at that point, and Nick moved in,
Yeah.
Joe so happened to move across the street,
Funny coincidence.
I think he was like actually like homeless the first week, and then he like found out where I lived, and he like did that on purpose. So,
well, there were many nights where Fernando like I was like sleeping peacefully, and then I would just hear like a tap 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 on my window, and Fernando was there holding his blankie, and he was like, I can't sleep. So.
Right. Yeah. Nice lie.
I like that.
Next page, V. Next page.
I like that this is the origin story of this friendship.
Yeah.
It's just like a buddy comedy where you hate each other at first and then you fall in love.
Yeah.
We didn't hate each other at all.
No, we didn't. True. We got along. We actually did click pretty quickly, and it was nice to have a good friend out here when I just moved. It was cool.
Of course, yeah. Our first bonding outside of work was like Lightbox, the convention.
Oh yeah.
I was like, hey, you should come to Lightbox, and he was like, I don't know.
But I did.
So
I did.
We hung out. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was, and we worked on a Cuphead episode together because our head of story, Diki, was super cool, and like he always would let board artists kind of pitch ideas for episodes, and so we worked on. We kind of like came up with like an episode outline together. That was cool.
Rats all folks. By the way.
Yeah.
We thought Warner deserved an episode.
So
tried our best to come up with one, and turned out pretty good, I think.
Yeah, thanks to Clay and Carl and Zoe for boarding it so well.
Yeah.
So did you guys write the story? Are you credited as writers?
We're credited as additional writing, but I would say writer is a little more accurate. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, we got credited.
No, that's great though. It's like it's a really good credit to have.
Totally. Yeah.
That's what they're looking for if you want to pitch a show.
Yeah. No, it was good. Yeah. It was like nice to. I never really. Well, I had kind of come up with my own stuff, but it was good to do it professionally and like get feedback and kind of learn the ropes and everything. It was good. It was a good experience.
Yeah. It's good. Okay.
Nice.
Next question.
And sorry, I was like reading the prompts on like
no, you're good.
I was gonna do. I love that. I love that. So this is how you guys met, and this was a Cuphead. And so that was actually when did it end? Like storyboards on Cuphead. Did you guys do anything afterwards?
So I mean.
Oh. Nick and sorry, I keep cutting you off. Nick and I are on Bunny, obviously.
Yeah. But, there's stuff in between.
Yeah, like let's talk about that real fast.
Yeah. What did you do, Fernando, after Cuphead?
So after Cuphead, Mike Chillian, fantastic cartoon guy, was brought me on for Tig N Seek season 4. And that was
boards?
awesome. Yeah, boards. Yeah. And
nice.
That was cool. And then I loved working on Tig N Seek. When my episodes came out, I really wanted to go back and work on that. I think that happens with like everything that I work on. I always want to go back, to working on it. And then afterwards, I got to work on a show called Middlemost Post for Nickelodeon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Were you a board artist on it?
I was. That was under the very, very kind recommendation of our friend Megan, who was my board partner. So it kind of worked out,
Yeah.
That
on Cuphead.
Sorry, I'm like getting distracted.
All good.
No, it was great. I loved working with Megan, and I'm so glad I got to work with her again. I kind of didn't get to be her board. I didn't get to be part of her team, but it was great to work with her again. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. What is that?
My cat is clawing the Cintiq right now. He wants attention.
I'm talking about like what V is drawing.
I know it's
It's
Cuphead.
I'm trying to draw the Cuphead voice with a horrible human head. It's not in my wheelhouse, but perfect. I'm trying to make it horrible.
Yeah. I should also. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna ask you about when when did you so you when did you decide to pitch for the cartoons program, Fernando? Because well, I guess since you worked on Tig and Seek, is that kind of
Yes.
how you were connected to the program?
Uh, I want to say no. I don't really know. Here's the thing. So, so when I was on Tig and Seek, that's when the program was announced, and I was like, "Oh, cool, shorts program. Damn, maybe I should start thinking about stuff to pitch." And at the same time, a recruiter, or not a recruiter, sorry, an executive, a development executive, was like, "Hey, we'd like to hear about what kind of ideas you have for for development." And I was like, "Oh, is this for the shorts program?" And she was like, "No, no, no, it's not. It's not." I was like, "Oh, okay." Um, and I kind of pitched this idea. I pitched a couple of ideas, and they were all kind of like not right, or they weren't working in some way. So I did pitch like Button's Game Zone originally, and she was like, "Well, this is too adult for kids, and it's too kids for adults." And I was like, "Oh, I could see that problem, pretty easily."
Yeah,
So I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh, well, thank you for letting me pitch these to you." And we had a great chat, and that was I kind of was like, okay, I guess I'll adjust this idea to be more for kids, because I think I'd rather work on something for older kids than I would for like adults or something.
Right.
I mean, I'm pretty open to either. I have ideas for both, but I guess initially I was like, well, this is what I like to watch, so I think I want to see more like stuff like that, and it's what I've worked on for the past few years. Then I left Tig and Seek. I was like, okay, well, the show's over. Now I'm on Middlemost Post. I got email when I left Tig and Seek. I got an email from Pete Browngardt, and he was like, "Hey, I'm a big fan of your stuff, and there's a shorts program. I don't know if you've heard of it. I think we'd be really interested in seeing what you have, got to say or have to show." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Wow, Pete Browngardt thinks that." I was, I'm a huge fan of Uncle Grandpa, and the Looney Tunes cartoons and all that stuff. Like what he was doing with the Looney Tunes, I thought was awesome. So I was like, "Oh, damn, I really, I want to, I want to, I'm going to try, I'm going to give it a shot, knowing that Pete thought I should do it." So I did. I did something. I did a PDF. I made a PDF with a 3-page PDF describing characters and the plot and what the show is. I made it more for kids. I made it more of a 6 to 11 situation instead of what it was before, which was more like, it was more for teenagers, I guess. And I sent it in. They liked it, but they thought the plot was a little too busy for a 7-minute, which is totally fair, because I've never really written anything for 7 minutes, So I fixed it up, I changed it up, and they liked it, and now I'm making it. So I'm incredibly lucky to have that in my,
Yeah, that is so
go.
cool. Yeah, that is so cool. I love that. Also, I love that in the story you talk about how, pitching the first time doesn't work always. Like you have to kind of go and it's okay to have an idea that isn't ready on the first pitch, and you can keep pitching that idea as long as you do the notes, right? It's like you don't, like, if you keep pitching it exactly the same, it's probably not gonna go anywhere. But if you're like willing to address some notes and make it fit within the company's what would you say, what would be the word, like brand, I guess. Yeah.
I should say that when this is something I always recommend to people, is like when something of yours is rejected or something doesn't work out or whatever. When I sent in Buttons, to get reviewed, it took them about 7 weeks to get back to me. By the fourth week, I was like, okay, that's it. They didn't like it, so and they're not gonna respond back. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna make another idea because they were like, hey, I asked, hey, can you do more than one idea? And they were like, yeah, of course. And I was like, okay, that's it. Buttons isn't gonna work, so I'm gonna make another idea. So when Buttons was getting reviewed, I worked on 2 extra pitches to pitch, to Cartoon Network, and one of 2 different ones, 2 different kinds of stories, and not the same characters at all or anything, by the time I was done with one of them, I got hey, we like Buttons Game Zone. And I was like, oh, cool. I can throw this one in my locker or something, trash it up. So my suggestion to people who want to pitch a short is to not, don't if your first idea doesn't stick, don't be afraid to make something new. Don't get stuck on one idea, because then it's you don't want to be the guy with one idea. You don't want to be the guy who's too precious, too precious, has an idea that's so precious to him that they're too afraid to pitch it and fail. Does that make sense? I don't want, I've met people who have an idea that is good, but it's not fantastic, and they're like, oh, I don't want to pitch it so personal to me. And it's okay, well, if it's so personal to you, you shouldn't pitch it. You should pitch something that you can be okay with changing, because that's what development is. Characters change, and designs change, and stories change. My original idea for Buttons Game Zone was more adult, and I changed it because I thought, well, I want to tell these stories, but I can probably adjust it to fit, a different audience, I guess,
Yeah.
And technically, the shorts program does allow for adult ideas, but by the time I knew about that, it was already a kid's idea, so I was like, okay, this is good. It's fine.
And adult is also kind of well, I guess for Cartoon Network, adult would be Adult Swim. So there's kind of it would be kind of looking at that catalog and kind of imagining what you can have fit within the Adult Swim brand. But adult is can be so specific. I feel from my experience is more writer heavy in terms of it's more written jokes rather than visual jokes. So that can be a different set of skills in a sense. Yeah. And I think I have ideas that are adults. I think I wanted Buttons to be kind of it's for kids, but it breaks the boundaries of what is for kids and what isn't. Does that make sense? It's kind of it's got goofy characters, but it's a lot of danger involved, and a lot of crazy, just like Pinnochio.
Stuff. Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
I think it's fun to push. I like working on kids stuff because it's fun to see how far you can push it while still making it for kids, and it's fun to maybe make it kind of scary, or have weird jokes and stuff that adults obviously find funny, but I don't know, it's fun making something weird under the guise of it being a kid's show,
Yeah.
I think there's something that in what you're saying, Nick, that is kind of there's some stuff that would be dismissed as too silly or too goofy if it were in an adult show, but in a kid's show it works. And yet, even though it's goofy and silly, you can kind of touch on subjects that are difficult to talk about under that. I think that's something that's really interesting.
And I think what they do want at the shorts program is stuff that pushes the boundaries of what is for kids, what isn't for kids, what's more for adults. They're welcome. They want ideas that are crazy and weird and unique, and I think that's what they respond to the most. Anyways.
That's great. I love
Sorry.
that. No. Like this was all great. I think I'm really happy that we got to talk a little bit about like your point of view on that and kind of what it means to pitch, and because those are all like really great insights.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of questions from people on Patreon and on Twitter.
Nice.
If you're a patron of the show, you get to ask questions on the Discord that will be highlighted in the show. So let's get started. Let's see. From Pretty Pants, our patron Pretty Pants. What influenced your comedy sensibilities for boarding? I guess we kind of like went through that. There's like SpongeBob, but if there's anything else, and Pinocchio. What kind of stuff, however weird and obscure, shaped your humor growing up?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As far as comedy sensibility goes, like, I just like things that are quick and snappy, like, or maybe like altering the timing a little bit just to make it feel a little off. I feel like a lot of like jokes, maybe a joke isn't that funny, but then like the editor gets to it and they like somehow like make it into like a whole, like they give it its whole moment and stuff.
I mean, I agree with that because when I was directing on Wings of Fire, there was a moment where I was working with the editor on a joke. It's really funny because there's sometimes you see a joke in boards and you have multiple eyes looking at the same joke, and not everybody sees it. And because sometimes it's a question of timing, and it's all about how do you imagine it play out and how do you make it funny by just timing the frames, because if you add 1 second, like just that one beat before the punchline, it will actually make the joke land. But if there's not enough time, well, you don't
It all falls
like
apart. Like it
yeah,
doesn't work.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, I remember when on the first job that I ever worked on, there was a moment that I did that on purpose because we were doing the animatics. We were like boarding and doing the animatics and stuff. And on purpose, I remember timing it so that I wanted the person who watched it to get to that moment when they're like, this is taking a little too long. And right at the moment they have this thought, you have like the joke.
Oh yeah,
Because
totally.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're sitting in front of the animatic, and just the moment they get bored and they're like, what the fuck? Then you land the joke, and then they're like, so you have that, you can release that tension.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
really fun. Yeah.
That's something I learned a lot about because when I tested to be a board artist on Cuphead, but I got the revisionist position, which I was like totally fine with, and like in hindsight, I'm super happy that was able to have that like 6 month period before I was promoted to board artist because I learned so much about the animation pipeline and editing. I went to a bunch of editorial meetings, so like yeah, the revisionist. I don't really. Maybe I'll do revisions again at some point, but like just having that be my introduction to all of this was like great. And if anybody out there is like, doesn't know where to start or something, or if they like if they maybe they think they need more practice or whatever, being a revisionist, like man, it like I leveled up so much, I think, as a revisionist. Yeah, just like taking it all in, being in the room with people when they're cutting something together, and yeah, it was a great experience.
That's really cool that you were in the edit room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's really
I
cool
didn't
because
even
it's
know
not
that
always the case.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know that was even going to be part of it. But I'm really happy I got to go to those meetings. And it was also just fun, like laughing and watching cartoons together, basically.
I
But yeah,
always
it was
wanted to
great.
be in those. I was always like, Adam, please, can you just bring me up for this one? And he was like, I don't know. And then he did once, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's really great. That's something that we haven't really talked about a lot on the show either, I think, but it's like being proactive and obviously finding the right balance of not being annoying, but like asking to shadow. Like it's a term that I learned recently. It's like shadowing like an editor or shadowing a director so that they will include you in meetings or in yeah, like moments that you're not always a part of, but like shadowing will basically mean that you'll be in the meeting and you vow not to talk, but at least you know you can learn and you can see how they're doing the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. I also got promoted because I asked. I just was like, I really wanted to be a board artist. I was kind of getting like tired of revisions a little bit. Like I wanted more creative freedom. And so yeah, I just was like, I also really wanted like before the show ended, I really wanted to at least board like an episode of Cuphead. So I just asked, I went into the office and I was like, hey, I heard you like looking for a new board team and like I'm just wanted you to know I'm interested. And it ended up working. So if anyone, that's some advice. You should let your boss know that you want to like be promoted. It's okay to ask
100%.
Let them know of your prospects, even if you don't want to. Like, you know, I've heard of production people who don't want to just be in production, like not, you know, like not go into storyboards exactly, but I've heard of production people being like, oh, I want to be an editor, or like, you know, I've heard of like, you know, editors being like, yeah, I kind of want to like, you know, do something else too. You know, it's, you know, always ask, and let them know what you want to do. You know,
totally.
I think I have an answer to like the comedy thing, you know.
Yeah, do it.
I think this kind of does have to do with like what Nick said about the timing, but I think I was really into Newgrounds when I was a teenager, and that like affected a lot of my humor, good and bad. You know, it meant I thought that being really loud was really funny, like, you know, blasting, you know, music really loud, I always thought was really funny, just to annoy people, wasting people's time. And you know, so I take some of that, like, kind of like really just like aggressive humor almost, and mix it in with like really old timey stuff, like, you know, like me and Nick will do this all the time, where if we're confused, we'll like scratch our heads with a single finger. We'll be like, what? Or like, yeah, if we'll go to a restaurant and like we'll look at the check and we'll go, when we look at the check, it's so stupid. That kind of stuff. And I also thought embarrassing moments in my childhood, like moments where you go back in time and like laugh, you know, in hindsight, is really a good way to get really like nonsensical, like kind of like you kind of laugh at yourself. I think a lot of the best jokes are when a character, you know, is kind of like embarrassed or something, or like, you know, like they do something embarrassing, and you know, the way they react, that's very humor charged in humor, you know.
It's like awkward,
I think you're right,
awkward human moments are super. Anything really that like comes back to like a relatable human moment, I think. Yes. But you can make that silly and ridiculous too, you know.
Yeah, and when people are being genuine, but they're actually like, if something's embarrassing to you, but it's genuine to someone else, that can also be very, you know, it kind of like something that might not be funny to someone else can be funnier to you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, humor is just about making yourself laugh. You know, and if it's something that's funny to you, it'll be funny to the audience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's great. I think it's like diving in that deep personal anxiety.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Yeah,
like you could have a ridiculous, like the most ridiculous character in the most ridiculous world, but like they can still be relatable, you know? but like they still have motivations and like people will say, I remember when Uncle Grandpa came out, people were like, "Oh, it's just nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense." And it kind of is, but it's also it does have characters that like make decisions. And so even
Yeah.
like if something as crazy as Uncle Grandpa has like, is the character is like still the center of it all and the human kind of choices and everything. So I feel like if you have that, like to
Yeah.
anchor your story and characters, then like it's gonna feel satisfying no matter, even if it's like
Yeah.
even if it's Uncle Grandpa.
I remember watching Uncle Grandpa and thinking like, I don't think I'm that funny enough. I was like, the show is so crazy. I was like, can I ever be this funny? It was just like,
That show is so good.
whoa.
It's
Yeah.
all the characters are funny in a different way. Like Pizza
Yeah.
Steve is really like, he's like really insecure.
Yeah.
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 I just really like the visual humor of like Uncle Grandpa coming out of like anything. That was just like,
Yeah.
that's my favorite shtick. He's like coming out of his fanny pack and
Yeah.
then coming out of the fanny pack again. I don't know.
It's
I'm
good.
like,
It's
yes.
great.
Yeah. All right. So someone asked for buttons as a VTuber, but
Oh.
I feel like wouldn't that just be a drawing of buttons looking face forward and like
Yes.
moving around and bouncing around? Isn't that what that is? Like they're always like it's like a rig or something. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yes.
it'll just be like, wow, cool. All
You
right.
have to
Next
draw.
question.
You have to draw
Next
some like the chat. You have to draw the chat on the screen. They're all like telling him that they hate him. Like the chat's hating him. Yeah, we can answer
talking
another
about
question.
buttons. We have at L Draws. How does one even begin writing a script for a new short? As I find it to be slightly daunting.
I saw this on Twitter and I thought about it. I think what it is, I think it depends on how you like to write. So, if I'm personally someone who I can draw funny really naturally, but thinking funny is like takes some time,
Yeah.
I think when I came up with buttons, the script for buttons, what I really did was I drew a character. It started with buttons, right? Which I kind of just drew a rat, just a dumb rat, and I was like, oh, this is like a funny character, and I kind of like, took that idea, and I was obsessed with him. As you all know on the internet, people who have been following me for a while, he's like a character I've had for a long time already. I kind of came up with a personality for him, and then I thought, well, what would a show about him be about? And I was like, okay, well, I kind of thought about it that way. I kind of built from a single character, and I kind of like built a world around him. Like, okay, well, he owns an arcade, okay, and and then I thought, okay, well, what a short. I thought about like, okay, well, it would be a pilot for him, a pilot for a show, and I kind of thought of a character who's kind of like an antithesis of him, and that's kind of this, the other main character is. And I kind of was like, okay, well, what kind of crazy stuff would they get into, So I kind of built it around these two characters and their relationship. I kind of figured that out first. And, once that was figured out, I was like, okay, well, what would the story be about, what kind of story do I want to tell with these two characters, They are complete opposites, so what would something that would be entertaining to watch them do be? Does that make sense? Like, I kind of focused on who their characters were, and I kind of focused on, okay, what if they have like a goal? They both have a goal. What is their relationship? I know that's like kind of confusing, but I just thought, I guess this is all just to say character first. Always think about who your characters are.
Yeah.
What your characters are about, what do they hate, what do they like, how do they feel about each other, And then once you do that, the story kind of like will come to you rather easily.
Yeah.
You know, when I pitched my first idea, you know, I pitched a story, like an initial story, and they were like, "This is good, but the characters aren't like, you know, aren't the cause and effect of what the story is." And I was like, "Oh, that's a really good point." So I kind of like made it more about their relationship. That's what you should be focusing on, is like, you know, the characters. You know, people often will be like kind of focused on the lore of stuff and like the world, and that works for certain things, like for example Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, where it's like the world is such a you create the world and then you create the characters, right?
Yep.
But I feel like that is really, really difficult if you want to write a short. It's kind of like a difficult way of writing things because, you know, cartoons are all about the characters. It's really just the way stories are written, you know?
I agree. I feel like especially for something that is so short, for something that is like 5 or 7 minutes, because I relate to what you're saying about world building and stuff, because that's what, you know, as people who are like into cartoons and comics or whatever, we love that kind of stuff and that lore. But that lore is something that you get more in like big fantasy shows or like big sci-fi shows. And you don't really have the time to explain all of that in 5 to 7 minutes. And I feel like the writing style is more similar to sketch writing or improv, where it's like, let's just start with the world everybody knows, so we don't have to explain it to the audience.
Right.
Everybody knows what an arcade is.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what a school or like a fast food restaurant is. And, you know, yeah.
Well, if you think about like something like, okay, so Avatar is like this really popular thing, right? And it's got a crazy world, and they explain what the world is in the first 5, like the theme song or whatever, like the beginning, right? But like that story wouldn't matter if Aang and Korra, Aang, Katara, and Sokka weren't such a great trio, you know? Like if they weren't like great with each other, if they didn't play off their strengths and weaknesses, there would be no story, there would be no world. Like the world would be there, but it wouldn't matter because you didn't care about the characters. Anyways.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, so I guess just to answer the question, just to circle back, is just focus on what kind of characters you want to work with. What kind of characters would you like to make, right? And once you do that, the stories will just come flooding in because naturally, if your characters work well with each other, things will come to you.
Yeah, and the decisions they make, you know, it'll make sense. It'll like, you won't even have to think about it too hard because you know the character so well and you know what they would do in certain situations. And
exactly. Yeah.
It's something that I recently have been having to get through my brain because I was working on a bunch of studios are doing like accepting pitches right now. So I was working on something, and it was a kind of a first for me. I mean, I've had I've learned about how storytelling works in this kind of animation and television animation and stuff. And but yeah, at the end of the day, it really is all about the characters, and unless you're making some crazy surreal thing, which is cool too. But like, the characters always come first, and then you can figure out the world and stuff later. And it's tempting to want to dive in and figure out, look at this other character, that this character is an evil wizard, and 3,000 years ago this character blah blah blah, you know. It's easy to fall into that, but you can do that. You can do that later. That comes later.
Yeah.
No, so true. I love that. I think this other question from Diana _wine.
It's my friend Diana Wynn. Hello.
You didn't know that?
Sorry. What were some of your favorite moments storyboarding together?
So me and Nick, we never really were a board. We haven't been a board team ever, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We just never seemed to, never got the chance to be that. But I think, I guess we can just answer this as like what were our favorite moments on Cuphead together, because we were kind of like all the story team was like a big family almost.
Yeah.
So Nick, do you have any good stories about working on Cuphead?
I feel like it was just fun to just kind of be together and hang out and get to know each other. And I mean, did anything crazy happen on the show? I don't even know. I just think it was like fun to hang out, and like we all had really like similar sensibilities and similar sense of humor, and it's fun to just make each other laugh. I mean, we had our little cheeser wall where we all drew pictures of the famous very well-known character, Little Cheeser.
Yeah,
and we
Cheeser.
all did a bunch of Little Cheeser drawings. Fernando, you've got the board with all the drawings on it, and you're framed in your house, which is very cool.
Yeah, I framed the Little Cheeser wall.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a nice little what's the word? Souvenir from Cuphead. But no, I mean, overall, it was just great working on the show, and like, we never really got to board together. I think we would have done a good job if we did. We've like worked on some other stuff together, and kind of like have some ideas that we've come up with together, and I don't know. You just find someone that has a similar sensibility to you, and comedy sensibilities, and it's just fun making stuff. That's what I got from Cuphead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the Little Cheeser wall was kind of like this. It was this communal thing where one person started it, and then, I mean, it was kind of like me and I guess it was like me, Megan. I guess it was like the story team in general, and then like even like the directors got into it. Like Clay, or director Clay Morrow, he was like, "Hey, I added something," and it was like the most. He would like just draw like the most like beautiful Little Cheeser drawings. And I'd be like, "Oh my god, it's so cool,
Yeah.
So it was this like bonding that we had.
That's really cute.
It was great.
I love.
Wait a minute, I'm starting to wait. Little Cheeser and Buttons look the same.
Oh
shit.
I
no.
smell a lawsuit.
Oh no.
They don't look the same at all.
Yeah, they're pretty different. But I think we had a lot of great moments on Cuphead. We bonded a lot, and a lot of us, we're all still friends to this day. It's just a testament to, like good friends we became.
I know, it was a great crew. Like a great crew is like, it means it can like really like make or break a job, Me and V are on a great crew right now, honestly. Like, I think we're kind of having some bumps in the road on our production, but like the fact that the crew is cool, and like we've also become pretty good friends on this production, and it makes a huge difference. Honestly, if I'm going to be totally honest, it's like kind of like like in this moment of uncertainty, it's like the one thing that kind of makes me still okay with like being on the show and everything, like just having a supportive crew.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like just having, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, you never know what's gonna happen with the content you're making, and like, be it with stuff that you make for big studios, or even stuff that you publish online. Like I've been drawing comics for as long as like 10 years, and a lot of them like people haven't never read or seen, because the internet's so big. And at the end of the day, that is kind of what's happening now with the big companies. So the job ends up being just like the place where you go hang out with people and have fun. And if people around you are able to have that same energy where it's like, let's just do like the best thing that we can do and just like be kind to each other and like leave the ego at the door, then it's
Yes,
just like really
absolutely.
Yes,
fun.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's just nice, yeah, like being on a supportive crew when like you finish like a pitch meeting where everybody kind of like we recently saw our third act, and it's just motivating, seeing everybody's work,
Mhm.
everybody's clapping for each other and telling each other they did a good job. That is like so important to like, that kind of positive feedback and like camaraderie. Like it makes it way more fun. And that's
Yeah,
something that was kind of
Yeah.
lost when
totally.
we were in the pandemic. And it was really hard, honestly, especially since we had to keep making Cuphead like from home, and this great
Yeah.
we still like all communicated, and like we would like have video calls, and sometimes we would meet each other at the park and stuff, but it's
Yeah.
like really like you miss that when it's gone. It's like, oh man, it's like
Yeah,
it's
it
not, it's
changed everything.
demotivating. Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
so it's very nice to be back in the studio and working with people now, even though it's not perfect. Um, it still keeps me motivated and stuff. That's one of my favorite things about this industry is like um, the team
Yeah.
effort.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like everyone's just like, that's the cool thing about like, even though on Twitter right now, if you're looking at animation Twitter right now, it's feels like it's the apocalypse and
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just the purge.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, like the people are great. I think that's why we stick around. It's like the people are great.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I just, like even if this production doesn't work out, or any production, something else I think will always come along, and it's not the end of the world. And like Fernando was talking about earlier, like being precious with ideas and stuff is like you kind of have to learn when to let something go. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something I had to learn. But it's good. You want to like it's good to kind of build up this like resilience, like where you can bounce back if something doesn't go right, because it is a really
Yeah.
chaotic world. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Very agree. Very well said.
just to bookend the question, I think it's safe to say we've made lifelong friends on Cuphead. So
Yeah,
that's like pretty major, I would say.
it is. And like you said, like they were people that we looked up to, and it's cool
Yeah.
that we're their friends now.
Yeah.
By the way, anyone listening to this episode, if you haven't checked out Megan Boyd's episode or Carl Herdrika's episode, I think they were episode like in the 20s, like in episode 20-esque. So just go back and
Yeah,
listen to
check
these
them out.
episodes because it's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna give a quick shout out to at Chavistian1 because they asked a question on Twitter. Fernando, you already kind of answered the question. It was about the process of pitching to the Shots program, but I just want to say thanks for your question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And real fast, give us I'm making this a one sentence answer question. How do you guys deal with creative block if you experience it?
That's a good question. I feel like creative block, it can also be referred to as like burnout. They kind of go hand in hand, like um,
Mm-hmm.
I I mean, I think we've all dealt with it like many times, but like uh I just need to like walk away, take a break, and like it's okay if you're not drawing every day, if we're like if or you sometimes walking away and taking a deep breath and then coming back later is like all you need to do. That's how I kind of feel that way. When I was, let's see, after Cuphead, I worked on Mickey with Carl, and it was so amazing. It was like I loved Mickey so much, the Mickey shorts in college, and so I was really happy to work on that show, and it was amazing. And then it came to an end, and I worked on a different show that wasn't it really like my exact, sensibilities, and it had kind of a hectic schedule, and this was also like under the pressure of the pandemic. So
Mhm.
it was extra painful. And I was so burnt out, and I had to just quit the job because it was like just so, it was just making me so miserable. And
Yeah.
sometimes you like, I mean, and I knew that like I would be fine. I would find another job, but yeah, just kind of walking away, taking a break, like going outside, touching grass, as some people call it these days.
Oh God.
And then I don't know, just like going on a trip or something, like going out of town, like just completely separating from it. I mean, you kind of just did that, Fernando. You took a trip and in a time when you were a little bit stressed out, and I'm sure
I
you
did.
feel better now, a little bit at least.
Yeah. I do. I have a different way of
Okay.
tackling creative block, I think. What I like to do is when I feel like I have creative block, what I like to do is I like to change mediums. Um,
Mm.
Usually
Yes.
when I'm drawing on Storyboard Pro, like it could be as simple as changing like the drawing program and stuff. Usually when I'm drawing on Storyboard Pro, I'm drawing very specific, like in a very specific way. Usually the job entails drawing in the show's style, right? So I can't draw what I do, like what I usually do in my personal life, right? Or when my personal art, stuff I do on Instagram. So like when I'm feeling like I'm feeling like I'm sorry, I'm like fucking stuttering all this. uh, when I feel like I have creative block, I usually, when I'm like on Storyboard Pro and I'm like, I can't think of any funny jokes to add to the storyboard, I think I usually just grab my iPad and I draw on Procreate and I draw like some unrelated nonsense, and that usually helps me out of a funk. Um, that kind of stuff usually like helps me. I think taking a walk usually is helpful for the end of the day, but like I think I'm the kind of person who obsessively draws every day, and
Mm-hmm.
I like to draw even if it's like a dumb little doodle, like a sketch that I'm intending on cleaning up later. I think something about the iPad really like just like unlocks something in my brain. Maybe it's because it's so handheld and it's kind of like a little sketchbook or something.
Mhm.
Um, Usually I'll pop up like Procreate and I'll draw some crazy nonsense, and I'll draw something and I'll erase it and I'll draw something else until I get something that I'm kind of happy with, and then I'll just save it, and when I'm ready, when I feel like I can't like I can't like think of anything new right now, I'll take that old sketch and I'll just like do the line art, and I'll feel like while I'm doing the line art, it kind of gets the creative juices flowing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is just switch your medium if you can to something else. If you're drawing digitally, maybe draw on paper instead. And yeah, don't be too precious about your drawing. Just kind of like draw a bunch
Yeah.
of crazy crap if you want.
Be
Um,
spontaneous, maybe, like with a
yeah,
devil
yeah,
may care attitude, just get get it out.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I usually just watch cartoons when I'm creative. Like I have creative block. I just kind of like sit down. I watch that stuff and stuff on the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah, so get inspired, and look
totally.
at inspiration, stuff that you love, I bet there's like, if you have creative block, there's like probably some movie out there that really just turns you into an artist, and you
Hmm.
haven't seen it in like years and years and years, and the second you pop it on, you'll be like, oh my god, this is like why I want to do this. I did that with
That's
like that, Alice in Wonderland recently, like the Disney film, and there's so much crazy cool stuff in that.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
No,
no,
that's a
so
good, that's a
true.
great
No,
answer.
yeah, I agree. I feel like when I used to use Tumblr a lot, I should kind of get like create a Tumblr for inspiration, but it was before all social media got really big. I kind of was following a couple of websites like Fubiz.
Oh,
What was
sure.
it? remember? Or like Boom, but Boom with like 5 O's. And those were great because, you know, you have lots of different art, like photography, architecture, sculptures, like just random, like different visual artists. And it's like so inspiring to have like a little folder or like Pinterest or like Tumblr where you like just kind of keep all these images like handy.
Yeah.
And it quite, yeah.
I have a lot of stuff bookmarked on my Twitter where I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling too inspired. I'll just like pop it on, you know? There's like that one Twitter where it's like, what is it? Eastern European cartoons out of context. That like great. Really just changed my outlook on cartooning like really harshly, and it was kind of like awesome, you know? So yeah, challenge your tastes as well, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think that's the end of this creative block.
What?
Yeah.
I have more
Come
to
on,
say.
we didn't even do any jokes.
Yeah.
We just like talked genuinely about what makes us tick and stuff. We didn't get to do any jokes. What?
I don't get it. I don't get it.
What is that? Nick, what are you drawing?
What do you mean? Elder Kettle?
Alright. Boys!
It was, I know, it goes by so fast. Like, this was, you wanted to crack a bunch of jokes, but I caught you in your vulnerable selves.
You flipped the script on us, V.
That's what happens when you're the hosts. You're the hosts.
That's true.
You guys.
Yeah.
But I'm the one bookending the show. Well, that's the end of this creative block. Thanks, Fernando and Nick, for being our guests and sharing your story. And thanks to your listeners. Follow us on Twitter. It's at Creative Block, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor, Clements, for editing the podcast, and Malik for helping us produce the show. If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews as well as bonus episodes. And we will tell you a little early who we are interviewing so you can be sure to never miss your chance to ask a question or ask for a prompt. Click the link in the description of this episode. I was your host, V, because it wasn't actually Fernando and Nick hosting the show. Psych!
Oh, man!
Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week. Bye!
Later.
Bye-bye.